pretty people. Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week, we are joined once again by Wormtooth for the second half of our Lovecraftesque adventure. When we last left our investigator, our navigator through a strange and arcane world, Max Caldwell was on location to Old Guthrie Road. Or is it Old Guthrie's Road? There's a road in a town, they get mixed up. A lot of things seem to be getting mixed up in Old Guthrie Road. Max Caldwell was on location to write Guns Over Guthrie, a spec script sort of transforming an old Civil War drama into a Revolutionary War epic. The only problem is, like I said, things started getting mixed up. There was some world hopping, there was some strange pieces where the stories that Max was writing were blurring into the stories that he was exploring and discovering about the town. Things were getting weird, and that's about when Max Caldwell pulled up outside while Max Caldwell was standing in his apartment. It's about to take off. This is part 2 of the game and end game for Lovecraftesque, both of which are extremely cool and interesting, and I can't wait for you to hear them. So real quick, all I want to say before we dive in, be sure to check the show notes for information about Lovecraftesque, be sure to check the show notes for information about Wormtooth, be sure to go to wormtooth.net to explore The Man in the Long Coat, Wormtooth's horror ARG-inspired fiction story. It's dope, it's cool, I can't recommend it enough. And with all that said, let's dive back into the game already in progress. Okay, so part 2 can be... So now we jump into part 2. Part 2 can be up to 3 scenes. It does not have to be 3 scenes. These are... we are now in the shit.
Yeah.
Things are now, like, way more blatantly supernatural and weird.
Okay.
Which, considering we've already been going pretty weird and supernatural, like, it is now getting real.
Yeah.
Because at the end of any of these 3 scenes, we can then declare that we are taking the journey into darkness to confront the final horror.
Okay, you're going to have to repeat that for me.
Sure. So we are each going to continue playing out scenes that are going to be more overtly supernatural.
Okay.
At any part in this process of these next 3 scenes, we can declare that we're going into part 3, which is the end game.
Okay.
Part 3 is the Journey into Darkness, which is an extended scene in which we take a literal physical journey or a psychological journey to the final horror, where we finally confront the thing that is happening. And then we say the epilogue, which reveals, what happens after that. But so we play through up to 3 more scenes, but at any time in those scenes, we can declare we have to have, it is now time to confront what is happening.
But we can get dark now already. That's not necessary. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. So let's do this thing.
So we cut to it 5 seconds after the door opened.
Yep.
Without thinking and without even really any effort, before the door opened, you grabbed the fire hydrant.
Yep.
Stepped behind where the door was going to open. Watched yourself open the door, step into the apartment, and now you are standing over what is probably dead, but maybe an unconscious version of what is clearly you, but not you.
I am going to drop the fire hydrant,
or
close
fire
the door.
Extinguisher. I said
the fire extinguisher. Drop it. Panic for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Panic a little bit. Close the door and start vigorously, shaking, slapping, and just saying, "God, I hope that you wake up because I need to know."
You immediately you're back. It's the moment you just heard you just hear the Uber pulling away. The fire hydrant is in your hand, or the fire extinguisher is in your hand. The door is opening.
I throw the extinguisher. I throw it to the side and I go for a running tackle instead.
Okay. As you tackle the person that is you, the moment that you make contact, you feel a pain in every single nerve ending. And immediately you are back to the exact same moment where you are holding the fire extinguisher. You've now figured out what it is. And the door is opening.
I'm going to stand real still.
Okay. The door opens. And
The second the door opens and I see myself start to walk through, I just say, don't move, and whatever you do, don't touch me.
he says, without turning, without missing a beat, he says, so we've gotten past the obligatory murders then. Well,
Murder and a half. I don't know how the second one went. Wait, how many are there usually?
It's different every time. It's hard to explain. You just need to trust me.
I mean, if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? Am I right? That's a good line. I gotta remember that.
I am not you.
Oh. Okay.
You can't make guns over Guthrie. Do not go back to the graveyard. He then slams the door closed, locks it, and then you hear what sounds like a dirt bike start up. And he's just gone. And he doesn't go towards the town. He goes in the other direction.
I need to know. I gotta know. He can't just say that. I'm gonna sit quietly for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna curse under my breath. That fucker can't... You can't hide this from me. And I'm gonna hit play. And if it's alright for you, I might call for scene end here.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing. I want to say one... I just want to paint one small picture right before we get
because I'm gonna hit play specifically.
Because I feel like you sit down, you take a breath, right? And then you open your eyes, and the destruction that you have caused in this room
is gone.
Like, no. It just comes in. You kind of forgot because all this other stuff was happening. It is horrendous. You have gone crazy. Like, you are, like, the thought that you might just actually be crazy, like, strikes you as very probable because this room is not...
I did ransack this apartment.
And it was because you thought there were cameras. It's a very particular, like, you've seen movies about that. You wrote the beginning of a screenplay about that. And that's when you bring up the thing and you recognize that the most dangerous sport would actually be a really good title for the project you did about the person going crazy, violently crazy.
Yeah, that's a good title. Because it's... Okay, that's really good. I'm going to want to watch that later. I think I'm going to hit play...
On the short film?
Old Guthrie Road, Pennsylvania. A travelogue.
A travelogue. Interesting. As you're, like, scrolling down, like, they all kind of, like, animate, like, a bit. And it's just like, oh, man, you know exactly who all of the characters are. It's, like, very creepy.
Yep.
It's like some of the actors you even recognize, like, ugh. But then you hit play, and that's where we scene change, right?
Do we want one more scene, or do we want to go into part 3 here?
I think we could do one more scene and then the end game, right? Because I feel like there's still this, like, if we had just taken it from the any of the deaths, if I had just left, if we had scene changed there, I feel like then we go into the end game. But because there's like a little bit more of a thread, I think, I think that's good.
Okay. So
where is our next scene?
I think the next scene is you like, it starts with you immediately. It starts with you watching.
Yeah.
Except it's not a travelogue about Old Guthrie Road, Pennsylvania. Old Guthrie's Road, sorry. It's not a travelogue of Old Guthrie's Road, Pennsylvania, on Old Guthrie Road.
Okay.
It is specifically, you're actually caught off guard because you're ready to, like, learn all this, and that's when you realize you recognize the faces, because this is a behind-the-scenes segment for Guns Over Guthrie about coming here and filming on location on the real battlegrounds.
Mm-hmm.
The you that is you but not you is narrating like, well, you know, I was here for a few days and I came to realize, and as he says this next part, his eyes sink a little bit and his skin starts to pale a little bit and he just looks like he gets guilty, frightened, anxious. I realized doing it anywhere else, everyone needed to come and experience the town for themselves. We needed to film here. We needed to film on the site. And it's just, you're watching and you're hearing, and they start interviewing actors and they start telling the stories of these characters, some of whom you recognize from you sing Hey Mickey, some of them you recognize from Buddy Holly.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all telling these like grisly details. They're like, well, you know, Marlon Burnside's, it was really tragic that he took that knife and, you know, murdered everyone in his unit. But I mean, that's kind of the reality of the war that we're trying to portray. We're not painting a glamorized photo. And they're just these grisly details after grisly detail after grisly detail. And they just seem to be getting more and more intense. And then the on-site footage is just them. They cut to an on-site clip and it's just somebody carrying a script and screaming, you know, Aaron Thomas shot his commanding officer in the back and fled like a coward. The man was a coward. I am portraying him as the coward that he is, to turn and shoot a man dead. And it's it's 15-minute, and it just seems like they're filming and they're shooting and they're recording, and everyone, it's just, you feel this unease. And then you hear you hear more cars outside. Outside
from the travel, like, so this is just actually outside while I'm watching the travel.
Yeah, you hear outside the apartment, you hear a car go by, and you know, there are no cars in this area. You've heard the Uber drive by, but then you hear another car, and then you hear another car, and you're seeing the lights and the headlights, and do you go look?
So, what part of the travel log am I at? Did I get to the end?
It's right before they kind of cut to the, like, I think you're about like 2 or 3 minutes from the end.
Okay. I'm gonna I guess I'm just gonna keep it rolling.
Okay.
And I'm gonna kind of try to pay attention while I look out the window, look out there's a window in the door.
Yep.
And kind of see what, cause the barn doesn't really have windows, right? So you have to go to the door to actually look out the window. But I'm a little weirded out, so I don't want to show that I'm here. So I'm going to try to move it as little as possible while also kind of still paying attention to the travelogue, because I specifically want to see if there's a date in the credits, but I can't bring myself to fast forward it.
So you look out the window and you see film crew. You see people, and you see, you see the crowd gathering outside, and they've set up a chair, and you see on it, it says M. Caldwell.
Mm-hmm.
And the crowd is around. You see a producer, you see, your producer, the producer that you were sent here on the order of, whose name is Byron Mulroney. You see Byron, he's on the phone. Byron. And he's telling, where the fuck? And he looks up and he points at you and he starts, you can't quite hear him because the TV is on and because you're on the second floor, but you see him pointing and starting to shout a little bit, like he sees you through the window, and he's like, hey, fuck down here. And the last thing that you hear before it wraps up, before you briefly get to see the date, is the interviewer, you looked away, and you realize that you realize in that kind of split attention way that you lost track of the TV for a second.
Mm-hmm.
But just in time to hear yourself say, I guess if I were to tell myself anything, it would be, Max, don't do it again. It's not worth it. And you look, and the last shot of this documentary is just you staring at the TV screen. Or is you staring at the camera. The you that is not you. Not even saying anything. just staring. And then it fades to black, and then it goes through the credits for about 30 seconds, and then you see the date is tomorrow.
Oof.
And that clock strikes 12. So I guess I should say it's tonight. Or today.
Wait. 12 p.m.
Midnight.
or a.m.?
The next day. Okay. Tomorrow has become today.
Okay, so they're filming at night. They're filming a night scene.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's how I could see the lights. That makes sense.
Yep.
I guess I just was destroying all of the Airbnb furniture for so long.
I lost track of time. Yeah.
I look around at my bag, where's my bag?
It's against the it was against the door and it got pushed off to the side.
Okay. I'm gonna grab my bag, kind of look through my notes. It's so many notes. I'm not gonna I go to look through my notes and it's ugh, there's no way I can, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We wrote all these notes all over the script and it's just there's no way we can, get through this. And it's
the one thing that you do see as you're flipping through, you didn't highlight anything before.
Yeah.
And yet there are lines highlighted as though they are your lines for a character named Max.
What do the lines say?
Well, the page that you flip to is towards the end. It's not the last few pages, but it's close. And the one line that you can see, the line that immediately catches you, and this is the final note of the scene. Oh God, please don't. Please, I'm begging you. Oh God, please don't. Screams.
Ugh. And are the screams highlighted?
Yeah.
Ugh.
In the sort of stage direction-y way.
Oh no. That has terrible implications. Cool. Not at all.
Do we want one more scene, or do we want to go to the Journey into Darkness?
Oof. Okay, I guess this is what it matters. Do you want to do the Journey into Darkness as the DM or as the character?
Do it as the DM.
Yeah, I think it's your show. I feel like that's the only way to...
All right.
So why don't we
Let's
do one more scene and then, right?
Because
it'll be I'll DM a scene and then you do the Journey into Darkness for the next one.
I believe, let me double check. Well, I think we kind of continue to hand it back and forth through the Journey into Darkness. So it's really more of just if we think it's time for the thing.
I think then if that's the case, then I believe that it is time to start the Journey into Darkness. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So then, let's confront this final horror.
Okay.
So the Journey of Darkness is divided into turns. On each turn, we will take the role of either the narrator or the witness.
Uh-huh.
And we will either describe the environment that you encounter, or describe the witness's sense of horror as the journey continues. This goes on until this goes on for at least 12 turns. So we're going to go back and forth a total of 12 times.
Okay.
After that, if we hit the 16th turn, we must narrate the end of the journey.
Okay.
So I will start, and then I'll hand it off to you, and you'll see how it goes, and we'll get into it, and we'll just keep track. So, for the first one, I will be the narrator, and I will say, you go outside, and everyone's waiting for you, and they say that we've got to shoot the meltdown scene. And, the set is there, everyone's there, everyone is very calmly reading their lines. No one seems bothered. Everyone seems okay.
Uh-huh. And that, are they, looking at me expectantly?
Yeah, everyone is kind of, looking at you to kind of get with it and get into character and get ready to record.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And that is my turn. It is simply the next phase of the horror.
Okay, so then I take a turn, and I can either do the actions or describe what happens.
Yeah, you can either describe what happens, or you can describe what's going on in the character in Max's
what they're
head.
thinking. Okay, I'm actually going to do one. I'm going to continue the narration then.
Okay.
Because immediately what happens is an assistant type, like someone who is your age, right? But on a set that's generally a PA or whatever, walks up and they are holding a weird, like, it looks almost like an amoeba, right? But it is like the size of a dice, like a standard, a standard size, like Monopoly D6, right? But it is like moving and pulsating. And he says, they're ready to do whatever, but you need to put this in your ear. They say it kind of casually, like, they're ready to do whatever, you just need to put this in your ear.
I look to the I look at the amoeba, and I look at the film crew, and I look in the distance towards the graveyard, and I run. I scramble. I book it, and I'm fleeing the scene because this is too much.
Okay.
Towards the graveyard, because I know I'm there, and God damn it, I know I said not to go to the graveyard, but at least I'll have some kind of an answer.
I don't know if this is like a full turn, but I just picture the person like behind you, like, Mr. Caldwell, you need the.
What else is it? Like, let me ask you. Let me ask you a follow-up question.
They're like chasing after you, like you need the. We can't get it if you don't.
What's everyone else doing at that point?
They've all started, like, some of them started running, some of them started acting like Civil War reenactors, some of them with cameras are filming, some of them with cameras are being filmed. It's like, it kind of looks like it's very chaotic. Like, as you run, past, you see a Revolutionary War, your traditional red coat, right? But they're shooting at a camera person who has like kind of an old timey camera. Like they're like spinning the wheel on the film camera, and that is being filmed by a person in a union. What is it? It'd be the union outfit? Not union. The Yankees. The
Yankees.
Well, no, that's against Civil War. I keep joking.
Oh, yeah.
The American side.
Right.
The rebels at the time.
Yep.
Outfit is holding a camera and filming that scene, but they're holding like a digital, like a new camera, and it's just like a thing that you see as you keep running by. With this assistant type person on your scene just keeps yelling, we can't get it if you don't, like, you can't hear a lot of it because there are gunshots and everything going on.
As Max is running, you realize the streets were very dark before, right?
Right.
They just didn't have street lights.
Right.
Which makes the fact that you're well lit very off-putting.
Yeah.
Until you realize there are stage lights overhead. Until you realize that, like, there are stage lights overhead. You see shadowy figures behind them. They can't be filming this, right? They can't have known that you were gonna run, right? But then who were the figures behind the lights?
Right. With that thought, I just stop. Like, I just not, I don't even intentionally stop. It's like I was running on pure animal, like, like fight or flight. But like, this is like a real, like, deer in headlights, like that sudden realization of how did they know which direction I was going to run? Makes me just like stop short.
The PA behind you trips.
Oh.
The amoeba goes flying into the darkness. A few people, somebody nearby with a knife stops and, like, helps him up. Breaks character to stop and, like, pick him up. And you swear you hear from, like, an ear set from somebody nearby in your voice, just say, just keep going, keep him moving. He's got to stay moving.
I round on the person who I heard my voice come from. Like, I just, like, turn and just, like, let me talk to him. Like, you don't fucking know where I'm running. You don't know what I'm doing. I need, you, whoever that was, I need to talk to him.
And I think, this is a Civil War soldier. This is a Civil War Union soldier. With covered in blood coming, like blood, maybe fake, maybe real, coming from his mouth. Looks at you, hands caked in blood and viscera, looks over at you and just kind of, I mean, all right, dude, like, you don't gotta fucking yell, and like pulls the earpiece out and just hands it to you and like shrugs.
Is it an amoeba?
It is an amoeba.
Ugh. I put the amoeba in my ear. Like, it's like, it's very difficult. Like, I do it very slowly. Like, I keep like retching. You know what I mean? Like, it's like just, it feels disgusting and slimy in my hand. Like, I can tell.
Just get to the fucking graveyard. We've only got so much nighttime. We cannot shoot this scene in the day. And that's my turn.
Okay. Oh, geez. I feel like it's just like hearing my own voice. Even though I knew it was going to be my own voice, I feel like I still like fucking freeze up. Pardon my language.
No, you can swear all you want.
Okay, good. Fuck. I feel like we had this exact same exchange last time. I
have it with 90% of my guests.
Does the person who I took the earpiece from have a musket or a gun of some type?
No.
Camera?
Just bloody fists.
Who was he fighting?
You're not even sure. Like, you've just seen 4 different fights walk by.
Okay.
And they all look very realistic.
I'm going
to the point that you can't be 100% certain that they are staged.
I am going to take either, whichever is closest, a gun or a camera.
There's actually 2 of them next to each other.
Okay. Yeah.
They're suspiciously placed next to each other.
I will grab both a gun and a camera and then say, "You think you know how this ends? You want me to go to the graveyard?" Just like, kind of like, at this point, he's kind of snapping. Like, there's like a whole like amount of you can't tell me this is my life. I'm not in a movie. And then like he just turns to what are the people around him? Like, is there a redcoat soldier nearby?
Yeah. There's a redcoat soldier stabbing. Redcoat soldier is stabbing the PA that tripped.
Jesus.
Again, you can't tell
what is real. I shoot the redcoat soldier.
And falls dead. You didn't see a bullet, but there sure was a realistic looking wound. From the amoeba, you just hear your own voice. Yes, okay, thank you. All right, you shot him dead. Now come, let's talk. We need the final scene.
I run. There was like a weird noise on my end. It was very creepy. In addition to this already creepy stuff, I run away from the graveyard. I feel like I don't think Max Caldwell runs towards the graveyard. You know what I mean? Like, he like has a great memory, thinks about where the graveyard is, runs in the opposite direction.
Yep. And so I think that is where I call for the final horror.
Okay.
Do you have a super great idea for it? Because I have a strong idea for it, if that's all right.
I have an idea that I could work with, but I do not know that it is a strong idea.
Okay. I think we end at Ray. We end at Ray and Sons.
Okay.
We end at Ray and Sons cafe coffee shop.
Okay.
All night all night drinks and drinks and discovery.
Okay.
It's a little shindy bar on the lake.
Not on the pond.
Not on the pond, on the lake.
Is it dry?
It's dry.
Okay.
It was a lakeside bar,
Right.
and now it's sort of just a general store / bar.
Right.
You run, and the lights, you run away from the lights, and you get there, and god damn it, he's sitting right there. A single spotlight on him, a single spotlight on the table, a single spotlight on an open chair. Camera rolling right in front of him. You see the little red light on your camera.
Yeah.
You realize that this whole thing is still being filmed. You walk over. You sit in front of him. And he sighs and he smiles. And he's like, how are you doing? You need water? You need anything? Coke? Anything we can get you before the final scene? Are you good?
I would like a Coke.
Alright, can we get a Coke? Yeah, is RC okay? They don't have Coke around here for some reason.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, give me RC a cola, and they slide a glass bottle, which is nice because it's got the real sugar. And he's like, okay, and action. And he shudders a little bit. And you hear the panic and the massacre coming closer to you. Guns fires are starting to go off. And so here we are, you and I. What do you need to know? You gotta ask questions. This is like an improv-y type situation.
Did I make good shows?
Define you.
I mean, me. Specifically, me.
The hard question is, have you made any good shows yet?
Will I?
That brings us back to define you, and the panic and the onslaught is coming a little closer. You see, I don't really know what this town is. Because it ain't in our time, your time, my time. It ain't in any of our time. We keep getting here, and we keep finding out that we've made something. First, it was Guns Over Guthrie. Then it was the deadliest sport. Well, the deadliest sport. You were gonna make the... It's really hard to explain logistics of it. The deadliest sport is new, and frankly, but the paranoia angle, it sounds like it's gonna be really cool, and I can't wait to watch it myself. Am I losing you? Does any of this make any sense so far? I
just feel like the time travel storyline is really good, right?
It's solid. And the thing is,
I want to write my thing, but this is good.
That's just it.
This is what I have to write, right?
Yeah, but that's
Guns Over.
It's what we're doing here.
The Swordsman.
It's what I'm doing here.
The Swordsman. Would it have been good?
The Swordsman was my fucking masterpiece. I'm so proud of that. The sword fight in the first episode, they redid it in the third season and it wasn't as good.
Yeah.
But
did we ever figure out a good resolution to the headmistress in Deadliest Sport?
That's for you to figure out. Like, I didn't touch that one. That's all you. Or it will be, or it already has been. The thing is, we keep coming back here because we always run out of ideas. And the more we come back here, the more fucked up it all gets. They didn't used to be amoebas. The first few times I came here, they were earpieces, and he peels the amoeba and it's got blood on it and he slams it on the table. They used to be earpieces. Like, this is fucking weird, right?
I don't know what to say. I feel like the earpieces, the deaths, it makes sense. You just have to let go, right? There is no swordsman.
I don't know.
There is no greatest sport. There's just Guthrie over
Road.
Guthrie's.
Yep, and that's what we're doing here. you and me, and from behind the camera you step out, and me and us, we keep coming back. Because every single one of us we keep realizing that Guthrie over Guthrie's is our masterpiece. And the more that we come, the more we fuck up the storyline, and now we've got murders, and so what do we do? What's the ending? Have you got it? Do you know how we end this? 'Cause, fuck, man. I feel like we're in a weird spot.
I feel like I was sitting at the table, right? And I had the camera. Yep. I just like instinctively put the camera by the window so that it was kind of filming us both. And there's just kind of like
there's the third you that's holding the camera. And
there's like several cameras, and like some of them are camera people, some of them are Revolutionary War soldiers. There's like a guy in a dinosaur costume that's not very realistic holding a camera. There's like people with guns aimed at us, you know, but I've been fiddling the whole time. I've been fiddling with one hand with the coffee that was already sitting there at the table. Mm-hmm. And my other hand was just, you know, off camera, and I pull it up and put the gun on the table, and it's now somehow like a blunderbuss. Like it's not a rifle. It's more of like a very large handgun of the old timey variety.
Yep.
And I say, well, the way I see it, there's really only one ending. And, I just I kill the one that's sitting in front of me. Mm-hmm. And then I turn to the one that was holding the camera.
Yep.
And I say, you get it though, right?
Of course.
And then I, like, as he starts to say, of course, you know, I pull the trigger. And then he...
Like 2 or 3 more run out and you gun them all down.
And it just... He just starts finding himself. Yep. Right? But he... Like, before he leaves the diner, he suddenly, like, hits his head, hand on his head, and he goes back and grabs the camera.
Yep.
Right? And he grabs the amoeba that was sitting on the table, the bloody one.
Yep.
And he puts it in his other ear. And then he yells, "Places, everyone, places!" as he just, like, starts running through with the camera and the gun.
Yep.
You know, just mowing himself down anywhere he can find himself.
And that's our final horror, is just watching you from a distance do this. And then I think our epilogue is that it does okay.
It's no
Deadliest Sport Season 2.
It's no swordsman. There's no sword. There's no real sword fight.
It definitely gets, like, it's got decent reviews though.
Right.
Like in terms of, you know, its AV Club scores of B-, which is, you know, decent.
Hey, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's what the Muppet movie got, or that's what the 2011 Muppets got.
I just picture for some reason him in the library, which is the church. Like this is like we never really did anything, but it's also their jail.
Yep.
Right? And he's just like in like prisoner garb, like sitting there like on the internet looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score, which is considerably lower than I think it's not for like the people, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Its critic score is like a 92 and its audience score is like a 30.
Right. And there are people that liked the prequel better.
Yeah. He's sitting there and he looks at the scores, and I think the last thing that we see is a camera's put in front of him.
Uh-huh.
And somebody sits down and is like, so this is going to be a pretty quick interview. We just kind of want to get your thoughts on Oscar season. You know, the big announcement's going to drop Tuesday, right? The nominations drop Tuesday, so we want to kind of get your thoughts and get out in front of it.
Oh, I won.
No, you were nominated.
No, I won. You'll see.
Well, hey, we appreciate the confidence, and I think that's where we end it. Like, that's game.
Yeah, it's great.
Fuck, that was good.
Yeah, it was
that
really
got
good.
so weird.
Yeah, it got real weird. That felt like almost like a old school, what's it called? Like I didn't actually feel very, what's it called? What's the name of the game? Lovecraftesque. It felt more like, The Outer Limits or Twilight Zone.
It felt very Lynchian to me.
Yeah, no, totally. I could see that.
Or like Lynch or a Cronenberg, like very kind of like the rules of reality are breaking.
Right. What's the guy who did is one of them the one that did Jacob's Ladder?
It might be.
Or
might
like
be Cronenberg.
Brazil.
Brazil was Terry Gilliam, but it definitely had that kind of it definitely had that very just kind of trippiness.
Yeah.
To where it all kind of like it's worked out pretty okay.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
Well, thank you so much for doing the show. This was awesome. Oh, wait, real quick.
Yes.
One last thing I want to do. So what were your general like leaps of assumption? I can go through mine real quick if you'd like.
Yeah. We should go back and forth, right? So what was yours for the first one?
One was the world is out of time, or the world is out of time or sync.
Okay, I had written alternate reality nexus.
Yep. So we were kind of on the same page.
Right.
For scene 2, I had that, because scene 2 was, what was scene 2? Because I'm trying,
scene 1 was the mini mart, you meet Roy,
and then scene 2 was everything is kind of different.
Right.
That was when I had definitely written down, because originally I wrote down either Max has time shifted, either he's hopped to a different dimension, or this town is unstuck in time. For scene 2, I had definitely locked in that we were in a different dimension.
Yeah, I wrote stuck in a different dimension for that one.
All right, so we were on the same page. For scene 3,
I did also in parentheses write Nexus ? Like it might be a thing where we'll see. I get to that in a moment.
So for scene 3, I had written down that Max's work was shifting and bending and breaking reality. That the stuff that he had written now and in the future had been like altering the time stream.
I had written that there were different portals throughout town that teleported him to different realities.
Love
that something about the world or about the town caused it to exist in all these different realities, and as he like traveled on the road, and I was specifically picturing that like whenever he crossed, like in my head it was like whenever he crossed Old Guthrie Road, which happened all the time because it's like the main, like the one main road in the town, he would go into a different one. That's what I had thought.
That's wild. So I then, for scene 4, which was you're back at the house and like everything is sort of, what was scene 4?
Was Ray and Son.
Right, Ray and Son. For Ray and Son, I had written down, I had underlined different reality. I had underlined skip in reality.
Right. At this point, this is where I was like, it's definitely the roads. Like, we had, because it was always on your bike, like the character was always on their bike, and like, but I realize now thinking about it, that that's not actually possible because they left the mini mart and their bike was on the different side. Like I did that, and that wasn't on a road. But
so that makes sense.
Right.
So then for scene 5, here's what I had for scene 5.
Okay.
Which was you pull up, which was Max pulls up, you tear apart the apartment. Scene 5 was where I had kind of connected with like where like the end of it was sort of what we had followed through with, which was that this was a nexus in reality.
Yes.
That the town was outside of time and space.
Yes.
Max had figured that out and kept coming back to like get his future things, and had kept coming back to like write down more things.
So at this point, I realized that it wasn't necessarily the roads. It was actually just coordinates. Like as he moved, depending on which directions he moved, he would move either in time or in space, or time or in realities. Like, so it would be like different decision trees or whatever. Like, I still very much thought it was alternate realities, which is at some point I did a thing where it was like, I am not you.
Yeah.
Like, like that's where I was thinking, like, it's not just one version of him.
Right.
It's versions of him from different, like, I guess when a timeline, like when he goes back in time and does a thing, it causes a reality split and then there's a different version of him is kind of what I was thinking.
That makes sense. And then, so then the next scene was more of the same for me in terms of like, the next scene was that scene 5 or 6?
So the next one was scene 6, which is the first time that I realized that there was a time element.
Yes.
That's where I realized that there was a time element. Because before I thought that the time elements were just, oh, in this reality, he became famous earlier or later or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was when I had kind of been like, that was when I realized that time and space were in play.
Yeah.
Because I loved the, like, when we were shorting in and out of time, was like, okay, so we are alternate versions, but we can't make contact, and we are not the same person.
Right.
But, like, there's multiple versions of me all converging on this place at the same time.
Right.
Was when it turned from Max has been taking advantage of this and fucking with the time stream, to Max keeps coming back. Alternate versions of him keep, like, this is a place that is dragging, this is his hell.
And like every time he bleeds it dry a little more, and the story gets more meta and more ridiculous. Violent and weird. Yeah.
And that was sort of the whole journey into darkness. The 7th scene for me was that it had just lost all semblance of reality until, until he was no longer able to come back because he had been killed.
Right. Like, that's the inevitable ending to the thing, is that it always goes to the point where there has to only be one of them. So the newest one always destroys all the rest of them somehow. And
then lives out the rest of his career until he finds he has to come back and then
be the next. Yeah, exactly.
And then there's just 16 more of him already there.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's good.
Sweet.
Love it. That was good.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I would also absolutely listen to a podcast of Twilight Zone-esque actual play.
Right? I mean, like, that just sounds like...
Related note. You should check out You Are Not Alone. It is a podcast. It is an all-horror actual play. It is an all-horror, all two-person actual play.
Sweet.
Focused entirely on horror games.
I listen to some serial horror podcasts. There's like a bunch of really good ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a number of like finished ones that I think are like really good. That it's like, for some reason people only ever want to listen to podcasts that are like on, but it's like, sometimes it's like a novel or a movie. Like, have you heard of, The Black Tapes?
Yes, I've heard of it. I have not listened to it.
I think I probably mentioned it to you the last time.
I'm going to send this.
I love
I'm going to send you a link to You Are Not Alone, because it's good.
I just wrote it down, but then there's like 2 like short novellas that are on the same feed, essentially. Like, or they're novellas essentially, right? But it's like, it's called, Life After.
Okay.
I think is the name of the feed currently, but then it has both of the stories. And they're like these sci-fi. I think it started out as The Message, and it's like,
oh yeah, okay, I do know that one.
Okay, well, like that became Life After on the same feed, and Life After is also very good. Okay, it's like the same people who did. It's actually just called Life After parenthesis or slash The Message.
Okay, but I will have to check that out because I like The Message.
Yeah, and I think it's on the same level. Like, there are reasons why everything you hear is being recorded, which I really love in fiction.
I do like that. I like that a lot. All right.
Okay.
So let's do the intro outro, and then we'll call it a night.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
So real quick, before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
Wormtooth.net is where you can find my music, all of my things. Wormtooth.net/MITLC, Man in the Long Coat, is where you can find the ARG I talked about earlier. But you can, if you just go to wormtooth.net, there are links, and you can also see my music videos and my songs and everything else that I have is on there. Yeah.
Well, my friend, thank you so much for coming on. This is one of the cooler games that I've played in a very long time. I'm completely jazzed up about it.
Yeah, this game was sweet. I would love to come on and do. I also love that it can't be continuous because, you know, in the nature of the thing, it's great.
So for now, I am going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show.
Okay. Hi, Jeff. Bye, Jeff.
Thank you, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to Wormtooth for coming on to the show. That game was, wow. Like, that game was ambitious and cool and weird and creepy in all the right ways. I fucking loved it. Be sure to check the show notes for information about Lovecraftesque. Be sure to head to wormtooth.net to check out Wormtooth's album, check out The Man in the Long Coat. It's all very cool and good. And also follow Wormtooth on Twitter @_Wormtooth. Then while you're on Twitter, follow us at Party of One Pod. Then like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast. Join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord. Talk to us about pro wrestling or Gritty or the show or whatever. We're around. If you enjoy the show, a few things that you can do are review the show on iTunes, Podchaser, Podbean, whatever platform you listen to podcasts. The more reviews we have out there in the world, the easier it is for new people to find the show, which helps us grow and do bigger, better, and cooler things. You can also support the show monetarily at patreon.com/JeffStormer. Patreon dollars not only support podcasts that I make, but games I design, community efforts I spearhead, all of that kind of cool stuff. You can also just tell a friend about the show or talk about loving the show on social media. Anything to do, show the love is really what it is. If you love this, if you love anything, talk about it, share it with people, share it with the world. Speaking of something that I love, a podcast that I am very, very fond of, and that's only partially because I'm on it, is All My Fantasy Children. All My Fantasy Children is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast powered by you. Every week, my best friend Aaron Catano Saez and I take a listener-submitted prompt, we spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop every Friday at allmyfantasychildren.com. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Mega Ran, featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates, press coverage, or about coming onto the show as a guest, you can reach me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And that's it for me. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single goddamn day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance, and as always, party on, everybody.